My name is Tom Hawkins. I'm from Park Ridge, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. And I have two children, Virgil, age 6, and Annie, age 3, with classical homocystinuria. A day in the life for having two children with classical homocystinuria. Virgil's age 6, and he can eat about 10 grams, 9 to 10 grams of protein per day. Annie can have about 3 to 4 grams of protein per day. So in addition to the proteins from food that they get, we have to make their metabolic formula every morning and then kind of remake it halfway through the day. So, first thing in the morning, before the kids even wake up, we make 2 big 20-ounce batches of their formula, or their milk that we call it, which they drink throughout the day. But then throughout their meals, we kind of, they're picky toddlers at the moment. But we, track all their meals. So if they have gluten-free waffles for breakfast plus a banana, and then lunch is something else and dinner something else, we kind of track it in a binder to try and make sure they're getting the proper protein from foods in addition to their milk. And Virgil drinks about 25 ounces of his formula each day, and he drinks 25 to 30 ounces. So we kind of have to track the ounces of that too, because if they drink too little of it, then they aren't getting enough of their synthetic protein from their milk. So it's a lot of my wife will yell at me because sometimes not the best at recording things in the binder, but we'll text each other back and forth. Oh, this is what I gave the kids for breakfast, and she'll say, okay, write in the binder next time. So yeah, it's a lot of tracking and monitoring what they eat and drink. So both children were diagnosed from newborn screening, which is basically the 1 day after birth they did the finger poke in the hospital, or the toe poke I should say, and I think they test for or screen in Illinois for like 40 to 50 different metabolic disorders and other rare diseases. And this one popped up where the methionine was just barely above the high end of the range. So our pediatrician reordered the test for Virgil, and we had to do several tests over a couple weeks, and then eventually the diagnosis came in. And so luckily they were both. So we'd never heard of homocystinuria before. We were both carriers of it, so each child had a 25% chance to get the disease. But we'd never heard of it, obviously, until the diagnosis. So it quickly flipped from every other feeding was breastfeeding, and then a special formula, breastfeeding special formula. With our second child, Annie, we knew there was a chance that she could get it as well, and then she did. So, at least we kind of knew what the regimen was, and we already had formula on hand. But she was also diagnosed from the newborn screening, and the good story with that is at least they were able to start the formula right away. We've heard of other kids diagnosed at age 2 or 5 or 7, and at that point, those kids have to kind of flip a switch and go from a 100% normal diet to trying a new formula and having no protein at all. So at least as babies, they were able to kind of drink the formula and have the acquired taste right away. So at least we're glad it was identified right away, even though it was sad to get that diagnosis for both children. To give advice to new parents, I guess, it's a rare disease that a lot of people haven't heard of. So a lot of the first thing everyone does is Google, what is this? And a lot of the things that pop up on Google or, Google MD are scary things that, if your child doesn't drink the formula or stay on diet, it can lead to blood clots and strokes and mental retardation, are a lot of the words we saw when we Googled it. So it, scared the hell out of us. I'd give the advice to rely on your doctors and dietitians, and even the kind of Facebook groups of other parents and patients are good resources to learn how people deal with the diagnosis or living with homocystinuria. It can definitely be stressful, having two children with homocystinuria. We have a third who doesn't have it, which, he's a little easier to feed and everything. But, luckily the kids are good. Our two children, Virgil and Annie, are very good about staying on diet and drinking their formula. I think the stressful piece is when you hear stories of, a kid who gets a little bit older and has a hospital stay for a week or two, and then they come out of that and then they don't like the taste of their formula anymore, and so they switch to a different one, or a teenager who rebels against their dietary regimen, and that then their levels go high and it becomes riskier for them. So for me at least, the stress is some of the future worries of what might happen over the next several years. My dream for the kids would be, there's a lot of companies out there that are presenting at this conference that are developing different therapies or different drugs or different treatments that might come to be, that I think a lot of them are at the development stage. So hopefully in the coming 5-10 years, as they grow older, there will be other treatments out there besides just the ones that have been there historically. So just hoping that there could be, whether it's not a full-on cure, but at least something that's more manageable than the current drinking the formula with a very restrictive diet. So just hoping for other treatments to come to be and lead to an easier life for them. The first thing I think that can make their life easier would be obviously just a cure, a medicine that works and allows them to eat a completely unrestricted diet. The other item that, while we're waiting for that, is if they would just grow, as they grow older and get a little bit bigger and can eat, tolerate some more foods. If they're able to be a little more adventurous in their eating. They're still a bit of picky toddlers, so they don't try much, which is even harder when they're already on a restricted diet, if they only eat the same 5 foods. So hopefully aging out of toddler picky eating and being more adventurous in trying foods would hopefully make their life and our life easier. But obviously the simplest answer would be if there was a cure from one of these wonderful companies to develop a cure for classical homocystinuria. What I would share with the world about living with homocystinuria is similar to what I've heard about other diseases and conditions, kids with autism, other conditions as well, is that it's a trait and it's part of my kids' world, but it's not their whole being, and it doesn't define them. So it's it is one very big part of their lives, but it doesn't necessarily need to fully define them. There's other traits and wonderful things about them, playing sports and loving art and just being good kids that just happen to eat a separate diet and have to live with and deal with a very difficult metabolic disease, but it doesn't have to define them.